Everybody, I'd like to call to order regular Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Stipulation of members' presence. There are 9 people that sit on this board. One of us is absent tonight. That is Alderman Kevin Gavigan. Joined on the dais with us is our city recorder, Miss April Goad, our city attorney, Mr. Patrick Carter, and our city administrator, Miss Pam Caskey. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Murray.
Please bow your heads with me. Lord, we come to you tonight and we thank you for the privilege to live in this great country, in this great city, and thank you for how you've blessed us. And pray, Lord, that you'll continue to bless our city. Be with us tonight as we make decisions to the best of our abilities that will impact our city. God, I pray you give us discernment and wisdom, and God, help us to lift you up in our decisions. Lord, we know that there can be some difficult things that come our way, and Lord, it doesn't ever catch you by surprise. So we thank you that you already know the outcomes, and we thank you for the privilege to serve this great city. Lord, please protect us, protect our citizens. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Yes,
Ms.
Mayor.
Caskey?
Yes, Mayor. We have been requested by the applicant to pull item, which one is it? 9, the ordinance 2415 to amend the ordinance to amend the map. And the applicant has said that he will resubmit at an appropriate time. So the agenda otherwise can stand as presented.
So item 9 on new business, not consent. So item 9 under new business is being pulled off the agenda. Okay. Any other adaptations of the agenda? So with item 9 removed from new business, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye. Aye. All those opposed? None opposed. Agenda is approved as altered. Thank you. Mayor's comments, I have none tonight. Ms. Caskey.
Yes, thank you. I would like to introduce Mr. Victor Woods. He'd like to come to the podium and say hello. Mr. Woods is joining us as the Deputy Chief Building Official and Chief Electrical Inspector. He is our first electrical inspector hire. This begins our process of being able to finally become a full-service codes department. We are now doing all the permits that most communities would be expected to do and leaving nothing to the states that cities are allowed to do. And so we greatly appreciate him coming to join us. You come to us from Smyrna, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And today's been your first day, so
Yes, ma'am.
we've thrown everything at you but the waterfront, or
Yes,
did we include that?
No, good job. Great job.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to have him. Our building electrical permit process starts July 1. Took a little longer than we wanted to find somebody as talented as he is, but he also brings with us some plans review, so he can help take some of the load off of Dwayne when Dwayne gets busy doing other things like managing the department. So with that, Victor, welcome, and thanks for joining us tonight so people could put a name and a face together.
Thank you
Welcome
very
aboard,
much.
sir. Thank you.
Also, it is with some great fanfare that we announced that the audit is finally complete.
Yay.
For last year. And I'd like to ask Mr. James Bentz to come forward. I think everybody has the audit in hard copy in front of you, as well as the presentation. I think he's decided to dispense with PowerPoint and go to the paper. So, you know, we're going retro tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. My name is James Bentz. I'm a partner with Malden & Jenkins, and I was the engagement partner for your June 30, 2023 financial audit. You do have before you two packets. One is your financial report, which is the thicker document, your financial statements prepared by management, and then the smaller document, which is what I'll flip through, is our auditor's discussion and analysis, which gives kind of the highlight summary of the audit results. To flip in there on page 2, and I'm going to flip around. I don't intend to read all the pages to you, but certainly if we get to anything that you have a question on, I'll be happy to address them. But on page 2, just a refresher of who Malden & Jenkins is and who we are. Malden & Jenkins is a regional firm. We have 13 offices in 6 different states. Your audit was conducted out of our Chattanooga office, where I'm located. I served as the engagement partner on the audit, and all of our audits have 2-partner involvement. We have what we call a quality control partner who's not directly involved in the audit process, but they do our quality control review to ensure that we've met all the standards, that there's no bias from a relational standpoint. And we try to rotate that partner each year just so that we always have a fresh set of eyes. And so this year, Tim Lyons served that role for us, and he's out of our Columbia office. Just as a note in there, we're now up to 700 local governments that we work with. And we have 16 partners, Tim and myself included, who do nothing but work with local governments year-round. So it is an industry that we're very committed to and very ingrained in. On page 3, this is kind of where we call our 30,000-foot summary. So as your external audit firm, it's our responsibility to issue an opinion on the financial statements. We do so in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards, which the intent of our contract is to issue an opinion as to whether or not they're materially correct as presented by management and not give absolute assurance on the financial statements. And so we did conduct our audit in accordance with both, and we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is the clean opinion stating that the financial statements as they're included in the packet are materially correct through the audit. Skipping to page 4, and it'll kind of carry further back in the presentation. But because we did conduct our audit in accordance with government auditing standards, we are required to communicate any deficiencies we identify in the internal control process, but we don't. The objective is not to test internal controls, and so as we come across those, we do communicate those. And there is one item that we had in this year's audit that we'll get to on page a little further back. I actually didn't memorize the page number. So to skip over to page 7. In the financial statements, there are the audit process, we'll call it. We have our requests. We send requests out to management for the various items. Then we audit those items, and we have multiple follow-up requests and ask additional information. Through the audit process, there were some audit adjustments this year. They've been provided to management. They are included in the financial statements, and they have been reflected in your accounting system. But once we get the trial balance, that's kind of the starting point of the audit. And then as we go through the audit process, those numbers may or may not change through adjustments both identified by management in the control process as well as the auditors in the audit process. On page 9, I'm going to jump to page 9 here. And this is kind of our, again, flying at 30,000 feet. This is our highlight here for the budget for the year. And so we've got several columns here that you'll see. The original column represents the originally adopted budget by the BOMA. And so your original revenue budget was about $41.5 million. It was the anticipated amount. Through the course of the year, we made budget amendments, bringing the total anticipated revenue to about $43.6 million. And you'll see at the end of the year, we actually brought in or recognized revenues of about $45.7 million in your general fund. And this is purely your general fund, your main operating fund for the city. And so the revenues were about 110% of your final anticipated budget amount. The majority of that, as you all have probably heard throughout the course of the year, was mostly due to sales tax, which is pretty consistent with what we've seen across the Southeast, not just in Tennessee. And so kind of that next group down on your budget page there, you'll see your expenditures and your transfers out. We had originally planned for about $37 million in expenditures with about $16 million in transfers out, with the original plan to use about $12 million of our fund balance. Throughout the course of the year with budget amendments, we did increase our expenditure budget by about $5.5 million, with a good healthy portion of that being for personnel costs, bringing the total expenditures and transfers out to about $52.5 million for the general fund, which was a plan to use about $8.9 million of fund balance. Throughout the year, the actuals for the year ended up that we added about $1.8 million to fund balance because the expenditures actually came in about 90% of the anticipated level. And a good chunk of that as well is tied to some capital projects and some road projects that just didn't happen as planned. So good to see that we're adding there. Again, we added about $1.8 million to your fund balance. So that brings your fund balance at the end of the year for June 30, 2023 to about $42.7 million. Of that, you have about $23 million in the unassigned category, which is essentially what you have available for use in future years, and that represents about 67% of your annual expenditures for the year. As a good, how does that relate, or what does that mean to me in a numbers world? GFOA, who is the Government Finance Officers Association, generally recommends to have about 3 to 4 months of your operating expenditures available in the unassigned category. And so if you're looking at trying to have around 25%, as I mentioned, you all are sitting at about 67%. So your general fund balance is good. That is, as a side note, actually down from last year's unassigned, but that's not because fund balance went down, as we just mentioned. That's because we've committed several, close to $19 million that you all have committed to projects or capital purchases in this fiscal year of 24. On to page 10, to look at your proprietary funds. They function a little bit different than your governmental funds, so we tried to pull out your proprietary cash flow statement because that's generally a better look at how the funds performed for the year. And so you'll see here we've kind of got our different buckets for this year and last year, with our operating activities being that top bucket of numbers. Obviously, those are the ones you want to see be a positive number, right? Because we want our system to operate positive cash flows. And so for the past 2 years, we've had about a $7 million cash flows from operations from the Water and Sewer Fund. And what you all have done in the bottom category down here this last year, as you can see, we actually invested into the system with about $7 million of capital acquisitions this year in the Water Sewer Fund. And then we have about $1.1 million of continual debt service payments out of that fund. So while you're generating cash flows from operations, you are reinvesting into the system, which is always what you want to see happen in your enterprise activities. On page 11, you'll see for the Stormwater Fund, there's about, we did have a good healthy increase in cash flows, but keep in mind these are cash flows, so sometimes it's dealing with the timing of some of the invoices you get. But last year's cash flows was about $300,000 positive. This year we were about $600,000 positive from that fund. On page 12, as I mentioned earlier, through the audit process, we did have several adjustments that are included in the financial statements. They mainly relate around year-end closing journal entries. And so these deal with correctly categorizing or reporting the classification of activity that is already recorded but was not in the correct period or the account correct classification. And so you'll see here we ended up having about $1.7 million of adjustments after the audit started related to the year-end closeout process. And so those are the journal entries that, again, are reflected already in your financial statements and in your financial system. On page 13, we had 2 items that we call management recommendations, and so these don't raise to the same level of magnitude as a internal control finding, but these are areas for improvement that we note through the audit process. The first one deals with just the software conversion that the city's gone through for the past, I don't know if you want to put an exact day and time number of time, but you all obviously are aware you've gone through a software conversion, and there's been some challenges through that process. And so as we continue through this audit cycle, we finalized and issued reports here in May of 2024 for the June 30, 2023 audit. And so we had several adjustments in that process. management's working through the mapping, the closeout, and getting all of this reconciled, and it's just been a big undertaking. So this is just kind of to quantify that information for you all of kind of the process in the audit this year. Item number 2 on here is just dealing with operating under a balanced budget, and this is again an accounting revenue recognition item. So the budget for your ARPA fund last year was set to use $6 million of fund balance. The ARPA activity in the prior year wasn't actually in fund balance because of the accounting treatment for that. You actually have the cash in hand, but instead of recognizing revenue in fund balance last year, it sits on your books as a liability until you incur the cost in accordance with the standards. Those were corrected last year, but the budget wasn't amended to reflect that. However, that fund didn't exceed the budget appropriations or exceed the available balances. So it's really just a recommendation on how to make sure the budgets are properly presented and shown to the BOMA.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was confused by that one, so thank you.
And then on page 14, the last item here, I guess to preface this, the last couple of years have had some pretty significant new accounting standards that management's had to go through. And honestly, what we've seen kind of across the majority of local governments is there's been significantly more time and effort than actual financial results from those. And so we've had new accounting standards for lease accounting, subscription-based information technology arrangements, and private-public partnership agreements that have all been new standards in the last 2 years that have added time for management to reevaluate multiple contracts. And ultimately, the dollar significance of what ends up in your financial statements was less than $250,000 of liabilities and right-to-use assets. So that being said, the GASB, the standard setting body, has really slowed down. So there's actually not much, as you'll see in the future pronouncements here. There's 3 pronouncements coming out over the next 3 or 4 years. And realistically, most of what is in here won't have significant impact on your financial statements or your management's time in evaluating them. They're there to let you all know, but obviously the good news is it's going to be a little bit lighter couple of years from a new accounting standards standpoint. With that, that's the end of the presentation that I was going to go through. So if you all have any questions, happy to entertain them and hopefully answer them. If not, get back with you.
Ms. Caskey?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy?
Hey, thanks for the presentation. It's well done. Just one question. Based on the budget amendments that we passed throughout the year, are those generally in line with the percentage increase you see from other cities our size, from the budget amendments from the original budget?
Honestly, I don't know about the percentage increase, but it is a good sign of appropriate budgeting when you amend your budget to reflect the actual activity of the year. And so as you see your revenues going up, or in years when your revenues are going down, it is ideal that you're adjusting the appropriations to align with actual activity once the originals are met.
I have a question, sir. So with a city of our size, and comparatively to the other cities that you manage and do audits for all over, if you can always be better, you can always be worse. The 2 findings you had, I appreciate your audit findings and the work that you do incredibly much. To have oversight for the citizens, taxpayers, is a good thing. I know it's mandated by the state, but thank you for what you do. So if you were to give this city on last year a letter grade, what would that be?
Letter grades are tough. We don't
How about
work in
this?
that world.
How about if, maybe not a fair question, how about it in a different way? Could I ask if, compared to other cities, I like to say when I go out and I talk about how great Spring Hill is, one of the things that's important for me to say, I make the statement, the city of Spring Hill is financially strong. Would I be correct?
That's a fair statement, yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for your presentation, sir. Well done.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, at this time, are there any citizen comments? And you can come to the podium with anything with the exception of a public hearing item. Seeing there are none, I'm moving on. So public hearing item number 1, there are 3 of them. Public hearing item number 1, which reads Ordinance 24-13, an ordinance to adopt budget amendment number 3, fiscal year 2023-2024. The time is 6:19 p.m. Are there any citizen comments with regards to this specific public item? All right, that item is now adjourned. Moving to item number 2 of 3. Public hearing number 2 reads Ordinance 24-14, adopting tax rates for the city of Spring Hill for the fiscal year July 1st, 2024 through June 30, 2025. For this specific item, are there any public hearing item, are there any citizen comments? Time is 6:19 still. That item is adjourned. Item 3 of 3 reads Ordinance 24-12, adopting a budget for fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025. At this time, which is 6:20, are there any public comments? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to the voting agenda. There are 11 consent items. Ms. Goad.
Financial reports for April 2024. BOMA minutes. Department reports. Committee commission minutes and reports. Consider Resolution 24-136 to authorize the City of Spring Hill to participate in Kroger Company nationwide settlement agreement. Consider Resolution 24-137 to approve funding request number 2 for land acquisition purchases for tracts of the Buckner Lane widening project, south segment. Consider Resolution 24-139 to honorarily name Reserve Boulevard for the late Command Sergeant Major Cristobal Melendez. Consider Resolution 24-140 to authorize emergency purchase of nitrogen probes for the wastewater plant. Consider Resolution 24-141 to authorize emergency purchase of rain gauges and flow monitoring of wastewater. Consider Resolution 24-142 to authorize the mayor to execute comprehensive reuse grant agreements with TDEC. Consider Resolution 24-150 to approve carryover outstanding purchase orders as well as certain unused budgets for fiscal years 2024-2025.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda by Vice Mayor Pomeroy. Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Please vote. Consent agenda carries 8-0. Thank you, Board. Moving on, previous business. There are 3 items. Item 1 of 3 reads consider second and final reading of Ordinance 24-13, an ordinance to adopt budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Mayor, I move we approve the second and final reading of Ordinance 24-13.
Motion to approve second and final reading of Ordinance 24-13 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this? Please vote. Second and final reading of Ordinance 24-13 carries 8-0, unanimous. Thank you, Board. Item 2 of 3 on previous business reads, consider second and final reading of Ordinance 24-14, adopting tax rates for the City of Spring Hill for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025.
Mayor, I move we approve the second and final reading of Ordinance 24-14.
Motion to approve second and final reading of Ordinance 24-14 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Second and final reading of Ordinance 24-14 carries 8-0. Thank you, Board. Third and final previous business item reads, consider second and final reading of Ordinance 24-12, adopting a budget for fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025.
Mayor, I move we approve the second and final reading of ordinance 24-12.
Motion to approve second and final reading of ordinance 2412 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Discussion is open. Ms. Caskey first.
Yes. In front of you, you have 4 floor amendments that we need to have made to the budget. I want to walk through each one of those, and then somebody will either need to move them all or move them individually. It will be your choice. The state law changed to require that we now advertise on a website that is housed within the county that we are in. That is going to add an estimated $23,830. The paper that we normally advertise in puts it on the website for free, but the website is housed in Cincinnati. That no longer meets the state law.
And do you want to speak to any of the other
Yeah.
remaining 3?
The next one, I'm sorry, I was waiting for the giggling to stop. The next one is the whole hog support, which you approved at the last meeting and is being amended in the tourism fund. The ordinance that was approved by you at the last reading failed to include Fund 150 and the 2 water and sewer development funds. They need to be added. They are in the ordinance as presented. And then finally, there's a carryover. We were trying to get the courtroom done in this fiscal year. We're not going to do it. It's going to be in July. There needs to be a carryover, $132,000 for that. And it's not in a PO, so it needs to be a budget carryover because it's being done in-house with miscellaneous equipment. How you would proceed with those is your choice, as long as those get done. Thank you.
So on these 4 amendments that we'll group in one are individual. Alderman Canapari. We're talking about just the 4 amendments. Yes. Well, just the ones in front of us that Ms. Caskey just talked about. Alderman Fitter.
I was going to only make the amendment. I don't have any discussion. So if somebody else has discussion, I can defer to them.
Go ahead.
Move to amend ordinance 24-12 as presented by staff to the legislative, tourism, and facility divisions. And then additionally amend as presented by staff to the capital equipment fund, water development fund, and sewer development fund.
All right, we have an amendment presented by Ms. Caskey, formally on the floor by Alderman Fitterer, seconded by Alderman Linville. Any discussion on this amendment? Ms. Gold, can we vote on this electron? Okay, please vote. Amendment to 2412 carries 8-0. Thank you, board. Moving on, continuing on discussion. Are there any other anything else to discuss on this now as amended budget? Alderman Canapari.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 questions. I'm looking at internal services, and I'm just questioning myself. I thought that if we did all of the transfers ins and outs, that the ending fund balance should be 0.
I'm glad the auditor is in the room for this explanation. So, yes, except that at some point they determined that internal service funds had to be treated like enterprise funds. Therefore, they have to provide for depreciation at the end of the year. And so we have to provide for some fund balance because we don't know what that depreciation is going to be yet. And since this is our first year of doing that, we provided for more revenues coming in than expenditures so we could fund that depreciation, and so we could leave a little bit of room for oddities, maybe $100,000 long term. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We're trying to make sure we set this fund up so that the auditors won't come back and tell us we missed something. You know.
All right. Well, all right. That makes sense. I was just treating it as,
Yep.
Okay.
it had always been an in and out for me
Right.
until they said, oh, it's an enterprise fund and you have to depreciate it.
A little more complicated. All right, my second question is more of a, okay, so what does this mean? If I go to the Capital Projects Fund for fiscal year 25, we're starting with a, oh, no, I'm sorry, not capital, I take that back, 1875. We're starting with a beginning fund balance of 44.7 million, and then we added 30 million of bond proceeds and some minor stuff, transfer ins and what have you. So we had a total revenue of 37.6. We had funds available of 82.3 million. But when you get down to after we expend our expenditures in fiscal year 25, we have an estimated ending fund balance of $3.7 million. What are we going to build with $3.7 million in fiscal year 26? Or am I missing something? I'm on capital projects.
1875?
I keep saying capital fund. I'm sorry. Yes, 1875.
Okay. You're on 1875.
Correct. We started out with a fund balance of 44.7 million.
Okay, hold
And
on.
even with the
hold on.
bonds-
I've got a problem. Very good. Okay, let me get my, okay. All right. I'm seeing a bigger deficit than that. But,
I'm just reading what we're submitting to the state.
yeah.
And it wouldn't have been caught other than, I mean, I wouldn't have asked this question. I don't think I'm catching anything. I just think I'm asking the question because finally, I got something I could read
Well, good.
in the format that I could actually read. But I'm looking at what you say is the estimated ending fund balance. Unless I'm reading it really wrong, you've only got $3.7 million moving forward into fiscal year 26. I don't think we're going to build much with that.
No, we're not. But, I mean, basically what we're proposing, it probably will be much more than that because we're going to start projects that aren't going to finish until 26. But we're going to do PO rollovers to provide for that at that time.
Really?
Okay, so we're going to start Fire Station 4 will be finished in 25, right? But Buckner Lane will not, yeah, that's right. Buckner Lane will not be finished.
And we're going to pay, do we have enough to pay for Buckland Lane?
So here's the thing I've been saying, and I've said it several times. We have enough to pay, this proposal pays enough for the estimate that we had the last time we had an estimate.
Mm-hmm.
When we bid it, that may change. And we have not completed right-of-way yet, so we don't know what the actual cost is bid cost is going to be. But to our best current guesstimate, we're good.
Okay, can I ask my fellow colleagues for a little support here? Do you think that we should be sending this to the state, showing that we only have 3.72, and cross our fingers that we're going to have a rollover of about $30 million to fund things? I'm just asking a question. I wouldn't, but I'm just asking my colleagues.
Alderman Fitterer.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Camper, I think what you're forgetting is in fiscal year 26, there'll be additional revenues into the 1875 fund. So if you're looking for an estimation on where we project the fund balance to finish based upon the projects that we have planned for this fiscal year, then yes, absolutely $3.7 million is the correct number. And in fiscal year 26, there'll be additional revenues into the fund. We'll tackle the next set of projects. If you think $3.7 million is the wrong number to have left over, I would ask you back to please help identify the items you don't want to spend money on this current fiscal year.
How about $5 million worth of salary increase?
That's not in the 1875 fund.
Well, we can borrow from the general fund.
That's not how it works.
I'm just, this is with a $30 million added in fiscal year '25 for $30 million of bond, okay? That's how we arrive at our revenue number. So next, in fiscal year '26, I'm being told that we're gonna have not only that $30 million in revenue, plus the normal revenue that we normally count on to put into 1875. So I don't believe that, but that's what you're telling me. Without another $30 million, we're not going to start with $44 million next year.
No, we're
in
not.
fiscal year '26.
No, we're not going to start with the same number next year. The citizens of Spring Hill and the taxpayers of Spring Hill benefit in absolutely no way if we keep $44 million on the balance sheet in this fund. The citizens benefit if we deliver projects in the field for them to utilize and improve their quality of life.
And I just heard we're not going to spend it all.
We're absolutely going to spend it all. Are they going to be able to execute on the projects within 12 months? No, they're not. You've done capital improvement projects for enough in your professional career. You know every capital project can't be done in a 12-month period. But we have to demonstrate that we have the funds available to start the project. We have to demonstrate that we have the funds to complete the project. Otherwise, how are we ever going to convince a contractor to take the bid?
Okie dokie.
If we're going to continue to build and deliver upon infrastructure for the public, we're going to continue to spend money through this fund. If you're opposed to that, vote against the budget.
Alderman Linville.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Canterbury, I tend to agree with Alderman Fitter. I think that the expectation should be that we're continuing to deliver projects and the fund balance should be decreasing in these capital projects funds. Now, if the concern is, having funds to fund our daily operations like salaries and such, I would point you to the fund balance in the general fund, which, right now we're showing at the end of the year we'd have over $43 million. So I think that what this budget does, it presents a healthy financial picture for us stepping into this next fiscal year, but also delivering the projects that, honestly, the citizens of Spring Hill expect at this point.
Any further discussion? Alderman Murray?
Yeah, just a quick question, because I don't have it in front of me, but so bonded amounts are included in revenues, even though that's something we're paying. I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
So if it's 30 million,
It's called proceeds from sale of debt. And yeah, I mean, it becomes a revenue. It's typically below the line, but it becomes cash you have available to spend for projects that you then are going to spend it on. So we have to show it because we have to have a positively balanced budget. So, and frankly, if for some reason this board chose not to go to the bond market for whatever reason and not to borrow that $30 million, or actually it's $40 million that we're proposing to bond here in the general fund, you would be then asked, okay, that's fine, that is your choice. Which projects are we going to delay? What project are we not going to finish or not start? And I will tell you that we're counting on that to do these projects, and I think you, the board, are later in the meeting going to get to decide whether you're going to stop that on faith that that's going to happen or whether you're not. So there'll be a time for that reckoning here in about whatever long it takes.
yeah, I just was curious as to how it worked, because, if I'm writing a check for something, I don't look at that as, personally, I don't look at that as money coming in, but I understand what you're saying about.
Well, it's right or wrong. It's like taking whatever balance you have on a credit card and believing that that is what you have to spend for the month. And if I'm a person, that's not very smart. okay? But if I'm a government who are then providing services that are going to be that are going to assist the next 20 years of people using the roads and the buildings and all of that, debt is a valuable tool and shouldn't necessarily be avoided. To this point, you guys have not avoided using debt. That's why we proposed the $40 million in debt and $55 million in water and sewer. I don't know how we'll do those projects without that sort of indebtedness. If you chose to back off of that, we'll need to figure out how to take care of the projects that need to be done or not do them.
Alderman Linville.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just state I understand the concern putting those proceeds on the budget, but just as far as an accounting perspective, you have to put those onto your budget as revenue, and then account for those on the statement of cash flows. Where it shows where did you get those revenues from, and so that's where you indicate that this is from property taxes, from sales taxes, from proceeds from bond sales, those sorts of things. So that is being accounted. We're just not seeing the full financial picture in just this one document we're approving tonight.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, board, so we are voting on the second and final reading of ordinance 2412 as amended. Please vote. Second and final reading of ordinance 2412 carries 7-1. Thank you, board. Moving on. New business it was on the schedule as 9, but remember we took the last one off, so there are now 8 items on new business. First of 8 reads consider resolution 24-138 to authorize purchase of near map aerial imagery.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 24-138.
Motion to approve resolution 24-138 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this? Alderman Fitterer.
Thank you. Question for Ms. Caskey. Is this on the agenda because we're not having the July meeting? I mean, this is expenditure of fiscal year 25 funds. Yes. So I guess then a question for Mr. Carter. Are we comfortable just saying staff won't execute upon this until the new fiscal year, or should we add an effective date of the new fiscal year to the resolution?
I would add an effective date to the resolution.
Mayor, if you give me 1 second, I'm going to have an amendment then.
Any further discussion? Well, Alderman Fitterer, Alderman Canapari.
Yeah. A question here. Thank you for correcting the memo that explains it's for the 39,750 is for 36 months. It was unclear before, but I understand that now. I noticed that on the bottom of the proposal, there's the fine print that says, by accepting this proposal agreement, the city acknowledges that the staff understands the terms and conditions. Do we know what those terms? Can I find out what we're signing up to? Has anybody reviewed it?
Please tell us who you are for the record.
Good evening. David Kerr, GIS Program Manager. I will admit I have not gone through the terms and conditions with a fine-tooth comb, but I can tell you what Nearmap is offering. Basically, right now, the imagery that we currently have, we have 2 sets of imagery that are the most current. We're tapped into imagery from Vexel through the state, and we also have a 2D offline copy of imagery that we got in with Murray County to get, and that is from 2022. With Nearmap, we will not only get imagery, a 2D offline copy of imagery once every year for that, but with the 36-month subscription, we will also get multiple flights that are done, and that imagery will be utilized through their online subscription. So we will be getting up to 2 to 3 flights a year for right around $40,000, when I can tell you that a lot of times you can spend just that much on just one flight. And the biggest benefit is the amount of updates we'll be getting, but it's also the turnaround time of those flights. With them, the turnaround time will be days, and with other companies, it can seriously go up to 12 months and even more.
Alderman Canterbury, I'm not sure we were able to answer your question, other than to tell you that I've clicked a lot of terms and conditions and said yes that I have never read, and I'm assuming that if everyone else is using it in accordance with their terms and conditions, other cities around the country, that they're not going to be any more harmful to us than they are to anybody else.
You know what they say about assume, right?
I have heard that.
Normally the board gets to see the terms and conditions. The consultants usually put it right in their agreement. What brought this to my attention was when you put it in really fine print below the line, like a footer in your agreement, sometimes you wind up getting bit by those terms and conditions.
So since there needs to be an amendment, here would be my recommendation. I would recommend that the amendment include a new effective date and a review of the terms and conditions by Patrick to confirm that there's nothing in there that are going to.
Are we talking about the products agreement
Yes.
that's attached? I mean, I reviewed it. It's similar to every other products agreement for software that we've ever entered into.
Okay.
I
I'm
looked at
happy.
it last week or 2 weeks ago when Mr. Kerr sent it to me. I just pulled it up again to make sure that I wasn't imagining that I looked at it. In fact, I went right to the indemnity when I looked at it, because they're always trying to stick us with indemnity, and even this had a language that says to the extent legally possible, which I'm okay with that. I didn't see anything about this software license
Thank you.
that is suspicious or caused me concern, and told Mr. Kerr that when we talked.
All right. Well, that makes me feel better. I just didn't know all of that happened. All right, I have one more question, and that's about the amount. $39,750 sounds really close to our estimate of $40,000. I'm not saying that they might have had the estimate in their hands before they did this, so I would like to know how they came up with that. It's just a lump sum price? Is there per photograph, per flight, per what? Do we have anything to back up their $39,750?
I can tell you, as far as the amount and the amount that was put forward in the budget, the amount that was quoted came before the request for
Okay.
$40,000.
If we have to change this agreement, I guess we just have to ask for a price. There are no unit prices or anything to kind of hang our hats on if we need to amend this agreement by anything. So if you're happy with the price, I'm happy with the price. I don't know if there's anything that anybody can do it cheaper, since they do it like, nationwide and for the state. But I was just curious. It's so close to the 40,000. We must have been, we did a good estimate then. All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Thanks, Mayor. And the products agreement that Mr. Carter is referring to is in the packet. It's 4 pages of really small font, single space.
But if you look at it in your computer,
I'll trust you to, but it is there, John.
Any further discussion before Alderman Fitter proposes an amendment? Alderman Fitter.
Move to amend Resolution 24-138 to add the following. Now therefore be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective July 1st, 2025, and staff shall not expend any funds under this resolution until July 1st, 2025. Excuse me, 24.
Thank you.
24, I apologize. I'm fiscal year 25. Yeah.
So we had an amendment by Alderman Fitter and a second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on the amendment? Please vote for the amendment. This is amendment to Resolution 24-138. So the amendment for Resolution 24-138 carries 8-0 unanimous. Thank you. So back to the original resolution as amended, Resolution 24-138. Any further discussion? Please vote. Resolution 24-138 as amended carries 8-0. Thank you, Board. Moving on, item 2 of 8 under new business reads.
Great time.
Thank you, sir. Consider Resolution 24-143 to amend the table of fees in the Spring Hill Municipal Code, Title 5, Chapter 1, Section 5-104, as approved by Ordinance 23-21.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 24-143.
Motion to approve 24-143 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-143 carries unanimous, 8-0. Thank you, Board. Item 3 of 8 reads, consider Resolution 24-144 to adopt a schedule of authorized positions for fiscal year 2025, providing for repeal of conflicting schedules and providing for an effective date.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 24-144.
Motion to approve 24-144 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Discussion on this item. Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Ms. Cassie, it's a question on this one. I noticed that the several employees are listed as decibels. Is that because they're partial employees or
Yeah, so this is called a full-time equivalent calculation. And so an employee who only works 20 hours a week would be a 0.5 employee. An employee that works 29 and a half is 0.61 or something like that. For instance, the judge works about 4 hours a week, so she's a 0.10 employee. This is to try to take care of part-timers so that you know what you're actually purchasing from salaries in terms of total personnel. So for instance, in the Parks Maintenance Department, we have a lot of employees. Tyler, how many do we have? Yeah. Yeah, so we have 3, 2, 3. We might have listed that as 8, but it really only comes out to, I haven't got it in front of me, but something quite less than that, because we've got 3 that are only working during the months we mow. And so that's what that's all to do.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Resolution 24-144 carries unanimous 8-0. Thank you, Board. Item 4 of 8 reads, consider Resolution 24-145 to amend the Spring Hill Employee Handbook regarding vacation leave.
Mayor, I move that we approve 24-145.
Motion to approve Resolution 24-145 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Ms. Caskey, your light's on. Resolution 24-145 carries unanimous 8-0. Thank you, Board. Item 5 of 8 reads, consider Resolution 24-146 to accept the audit report for the City of Spring Hill financial records for fiscal year 2022-2023 prepared by Malden and Jenkins Certified Public Accountants.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 24-146.
Motion to approve 24-146 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy,
Second.
second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-146 carries 7-1. Thank you, Board. Item number 6 of 8 reads, consider resolution 24-147 to award contract to Rodefer, Moss and Company, PLLC, to perform the audit preparation work for the City of Spring Hill financial records and for fiscal years 2023, 2024, 2024, 2025, and 2025-2026. Basically a 3-year contract.
Mayor, move that we approve resolution 24-147.
Motion to approve 24-147 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy,
Second.
second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-147 carries unanimous 8-0. Thank you, Board. Item 7 of 8 reads, consider resolution 24-148 to approve fire department contract with Imagitran for fire reporting software.
Mayor, move that we approve resolution 24-148.
Motion to approve resolution 24-148 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy,
Second.
second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-148 carries 8-0, unanimous. Thank you, Board. And item 8 of 8 in our voting portion of this meeting reads, consider resolution 24-149 to approve a memorandum of understanding with Columbia State Community College for Fire Department EMT program.
Mayor, move that we approve resolution 24-149.
Motion to approve 24-149 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy,
Second.
second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-149 carries 8-0. Thank you, Board. Thus ends the voting portion of our meeting. Moving on to a work session discussion. There are 3 items. First one, Finance Department Annual Report. Ms. Dutcher.
While I'm getting this ready, good evening, Mayor, Board.
Good evening.
I'm Deborah Dutcher, for the record, Finance Director. And I'm here to present our annual report.
While she's getting that ready, I will tell you that we gave her a bit of a reprieve so she could get the audit done and get budget stuff done and that. So she's a little later than everybody else, and it's okay.
All righty. And we're live. Okay. The Finance Department's main goals are obviously to safeguard assets for the citizens of Spring Hill and to ensure the funds are spent in accordance to the approved budgets by BOMA. We're also responsible for ensuring internal controls are in place and working effectively, and look for ways to reduce costs without sacrificing quality of services. The Finance Department has a lot of variety of tasks that we perform. Obviously, we monitor revenues and expenses for the city funds. We also do our reporting to match the state statutes, the charter of city's charter, and as well as GAAP and GASB to make sure they're conform to the requirements. We also have to, pay our vendors, so we have to monitor how we spend so we have enough money to support that, and also prepare financial reports to assist management in BOMA with the day-to-day operations. We also, again, monitor internal controls to make sure there's safety and liquidity to maximize our yields on our investments, and also manage a banking relationship and manage the accounting software program. In addition to the finance end of things. We also handle the court proceedings, business licenses, permits for special events, solicitation permits, and beer permits, accounts payable, payroll, and the payroll withholdings. We have the city recorder does BOMA minutes. She's also does the FOIA records requests. And we do billing for utility payments and property tax, and also manage the state tax relief program and the tax freeze program. We provide information to residents either by the phone or if they come in, and we're the telephone hub for the city, so we also forward departments their phone calls as they come in. Looking at current staffing levels, it's a little tough for us to compare to other cities in that we have such a variety of different tasks in our departments. So for instance, in finance, we have 10 employees. City of Gallatin has 8. City of Franklin has 15. But if you compare City of Spring Hills to City of Franklin's with just their titles, we have 4 compared to 9 people that they have in their finance department. Their additional employees are, they've got a budget person, an investing person, and purchasing in their finance department. But they don't have, all the other payrolls and city recorders and such. And City of Columbia has 11. Utility billing, we have 3.5 employees. The program that we should set, the reports and studies that are published say we should have probably about 7 employees. The City of Gallatin has 11, City of Franklin has 8, and City of Columbia has 9, so we're quite a bit lower than all the comparable cities that we looked at. Our paychecks have increased 26%, the number of paychecks issued since 2020. 21% of that has basically happened between 22 and 23 as we fill these necessary positions that we have in the city so that we can accomplish all the tasks that we have. We are certainly not at full staffing levels as a city as a whole, but we are making strides to provide the necessary people to do the work. Accounts payable has increased 16% since 2020. We are moving everyone over to ACH, so in the coming years we'll be having stats for ACH. We've got a small percentage of our people that have ACH, maybe 10 to 15. A lot of people are reluctant to go to ACH, or they want to be able to take funds out of our account, which I would not allow. Property bills, tax bills that were sent. You can see that we have about 10,000 customers in Maury County and almost 13,000 customers in Williamson County. There's a 32% increase in tax bills being sent out since 2018. And if you look at the chart below, you can see a steady increase in the years. So we're definitely getting to be a bigger city. Court revenues is a little bit down from last year, but there was a 10% decrease in number of violations, so we're hoping our citizens are following the rules and not getting tickets. So we have about $289,000 of revenue for 23, and we had 244 for 22. Or vice versa, 244 for 23 and 288 for FY22. And if you look at the split for those violations, the largest percentage for both FY22 and FY23 is the other category, which is cases that are guilty, they paid their bills, or they've been dismissed. The next largest category is violations. Violations assigned driving school. Our judge tries to give people a break if they've only had 1 violation in the last 3 years. She gives them the option to take a driving class that they pay for instead of having points on their license, which is nice. And there's a pretty large percentage of people that don't show up for their hearings, 18% in 22 and 19 in 23. So that's kind of high. Hopefully they have contacted and rescheduled or just paid their bill. Very small percentage, only 2% actually go to trial, so most of them are taken care of that day. And at the end of the court session, if anyone wants to have a trial, she'll provide that at that time. Utility billing. This slide will show you that the difference between the number of residential and commercial customers that we have. You can see that our majority of customers are residential, which we are trying to attract commercial customers into the city. We've got a lot of exciting projects that are going to be coming on board. So very small commercial customers at this point. And we want more because the commercial customer rate's like 40% compared to 25 for residential. So that will, as we have more commercial people online, that will help with our tax base as well. So our accomplishments this year is we've created a really cohesive accounting team. We've hired 3 new team members that have been extraordinary, 2 of which were additional headcount that you approved for us, and I appreciate that because it's made a big difference in our department. The 2 new headcounts were Margaret Whitehead. She was brought in as an accountant. And we have Marie Davis as our accounting clerk, and she's going to be assisting with AP and payroll. With the extra staff members, it's also going to allow us to do some cross-training, which is definitely something we need in the finance department. Zachary Hoteling was our replacement for our previous employee, and he is managing our property tax billing. We also put out an RFP for a new CPA firm, and the board approved us using ATA Advisory LLC, so we're looking forward to working with them. And we also put out the RFP for the CPA firm to audit preparation services that you just approved tonight, and I want to thank you for that. And we completed the FY23 audit with a positive unmodified audit status. As for goals, obviously to continue posting closing entries for each month in a timely manner, reconcile bank statements in a timely manner. We've struggled with this for the last couple years, but our accounting manager, Joseph Lascala, has found the secret formula to try to speed up the process, so now it's only taking about 2 weeks to do a bank rec, so we are hoping to get caught up before the deadline for August 31st, which we should be able to do. Obviously prepare into financial statements on a regular basis that are presented to BFAC. And one of our big goals is to complete the audit FY24 by 12/31/24. That we're going to make happen this year. Obviously we want to reduce and keep the external audit findings to a minimum, and still maintain internal controls for the city assets so that we can be good stewards of the citizens' money. Okay. There. That concludes my presentation. If anyone has any questions or anything to discuss, I would welcome you to do that.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the report, Deb. Question on the monthly court revenue. Do you know why September drastically went down so much? Went from the coming to the city?
That's because we closed the court for a period of time. So, like we have the month of July this month. There's not going to be any court happening. Okay. So, yeah, that was quite a bit of drop. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Dutcher. Good report. I like the visual aids, especially with Chief Bright's cousin and the violations thing over in the UK. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dutcher. Okay. Item number 2 of 3, discussion of fire station number 4 financing.
Good evening. Chief Temple and I wanted to come before you guys to discuss the financing for the fire station number 4. I know we talked at the advance that the board wanted to get started August 1st. It's a 12-month project, so we're looking at August of next year. The two options that Chief Temple and I have discussed with Pam and we're going to bring to you guys to weigh in on. We have $7 million that's already been obligated to be set aside for this project. The estimate is probably between 10 and 10.5 million. You'll see that in July, the 1st of July. They're getting it ready to bring to us. The question we want to pose to you guys is, are we okay starting August 1 with that 7 million and not having the full amount in the bank of the full 10.5 million? Or, because the other 3.5 is going to have to come from the borrow. We're not really sure when we're going to the market. Market could be September, October. Would you rather us wait, get the borrowing done, have the full 10.5 million in our bank before we actually break ground?
So is the contractor okay for starting that without all the money in the bank?
They don't, yeah, the contractors, like, we're not going to spend $7 million anyways from August to October, but as long as they get a paycheck, they're good, yeah. So we're just trying to see how you guys want to proceed, because that will be, we're going to bring a resolution on July 15th that has the maximum not to exceed price in it.
Alderman Fuqua?
My question was just answered.
Okay.
Do you have anything you want to?
Okay, so Alderman Linville?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm fine with that.
Which way?
Go ahead and start.
I'm like,
Sorry.
this is an or, this is not an and.
Go ahead and starting in anticipation of the borrow.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's what he does at home, too.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute.
Alderman Fitterer?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Caskey, can you help me out? We talked about this at Budget and Finance 2 weeks ago, and I think Budget and Finance was generally in agreement with this, and we had discussed the fact that you had had a conversation with Cumberland Securities about this. They were supportive of that. I'm guessing that's why your light was on. But we also discussed the timing of the borrow, and I can't recall that right now. Can you?
So we...
Or the timing, I guess, of Cumberland coming here. to have a
Yeah, so
conversation
we're
with the
talking
board.
about Cumberland coming in August and then pulling everything together, doing a bond call in early September, and then going to market as quickly as that rolls out, okay? There's two caveats that you ought to know, and they're completely different. One of them is that it is John Werner's recommendation that we keep all the cash we can in the bank and we borrow for more of the 10.5 than just 3.5. That's something he's going to propose to you with some financing options that makes that work. If we do that, then we could make that decision much later, well, before we borrow, but later than today. The resolution will have a refinancing option. So we could go ahead and spend the money out of the general fund and then pay ourselves back with the loan proceeds. So that's one option that would change the way we finance it, but not the start date. The other one is if we started August 1st and chose not to borrow for some reason, there is fund balance of $3.5 million to finish it. You would be drawing down that fund balance of $23 million uncommitted dollars, but it's not like it's going to put us in the red and we're going to go belly up because we did that. I think the timing on the market is something that nobody can predict more than a couple of months out. So we're probably a little ahead of time of knowing exactly when John's going to tell us to pull the trigger. But I think under any circumstances, if you're confident that you want to start August 1, then that's an acceptable decision. If you're concerned that you may not want to borrow the money, then you need to either decide, okay, we're going to fund it out of pocket, and secondly, or we're going to not start until we know what we're doing in the bond. So those are the choices you have to deal with.
Thank you, Ms. Caskey. I know we had already passed a resolution with the intent to reimburse, and we're just refreshing it.
Yeah, we have to do that every
6 months.
6 months. So yeah, and I just want to keep that in everybody's mind so we don't forget to do it.
Yeah, I would tell us to proceed as Missy and Chief or Ms. Stahl and Chief are recommending, and then we move forward with the meeting with Cumberland as practically possible too, as soon as practically possible.
Alderman Canapari.
That would be your option one that you told us, where we're going to pay ourselves back. We're going to put that in the resolution.
I think we need to give ourselves that option. We put it in the resolution and we say, if we want to do this, we can. Then you can make that decision at a later time. If we don't put it in the resolution and 6 months has lapsed, which I think it has, then.
No, I would go for putting it in the resolution.
To do a whereas it says if we choose to refund the general fund with the bond proceeds, we could proceed that way.
Yeah, if we don't go go out and bond.
Yeah, we could put in a refunding whereas it says we would refund
I
ourselves
think-
with bond proceeds.
I think that makes sense. It might even be a little more legal if we
decide
go and
to
sign the
repay.
contract that we don't have all the money for. Okay.
We have the money, it's just how you want to pay for it.
But in the resolution, it'll say we have the money. Okay.
Seems like the temperature of the board is to go.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Item 3 of 3, discussion of special census. Ms. Stahl, your name is on here? Okay.
Yes, but my project assistant, Will Goetz, is going to be presenting. He's the one that's been working on the special census. He's kind of taken the lead on it, so he'll be presenting.
Awesome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, as you know, we started a special census in December of 23. We had a pretty good incline with responses with our social media and our postcards for about a month, and then we've kind of not had much of an incline anymore. So as of Friday, we are still at 49.06% of response rating, which is not nearly where we want to be. So when we're looking at the map, a lot of our struggle is with apartments, and we had the HOA meetings, and a lot of the HOAs did amazing getting responses. That really helped us out. But a lot of our issue is with the apartments. We have hand-delivered postcards to the apartment complexes. We have emailed management at the apartment complexes, and we even were featured in the Greater Nashville Apartment Association monthly magazine. Unfortunately, none of this has helped reach our goal of 100% for the special census. So tonight, we kind of want to talk about seeing if we could offer an incentive to apartments, HOAs, neighborhoods that reach 100% participation with the census. We spoke internally. We had a couple of meetings with Ms. Caskey. One of her suggestions was to offer a food truck incentive for places that have 100%. We thought that was a great idea, something fun, summertime, have a pool Saturday, and if you have 100%, you have a food truck. So I was kind of looking for ideas, suggestions, comments on that. What you guys think?
I might add that other cities that have a significant rental population are having similar trouble. Cities that have a pretty much owner-occupied population are not having as much trouble. We're having more trouble now because we have a significant number of more rental units. Columbia, recognizing that issue, contacted the Census Bureau and asked them to participate and contracted with them to do it. The figure that kind of came back to us that they were paying was $750,000. My opinion is if we can make a big deal and give people a food truck, as Trent Linville said when he heard it earlier, it's kind of like offering people, a free McDonald's if you read so many books in the summer. Huh? Pizza Hut, okay. Yeah, whatever. You know, I got Reds baseball tickets. But the point is, if we could do something that would engage the population and the management of the HOAs to try to spur it on, if we get close, we can go door to door. We can't go door to door at 50%. That's 10,000 doors we have to knock on. So we don't have a budget for it yet, but we put some money in there to do something with. We'd like to work out the rules and get it rolling pretty quick because we think it's more of a summertime event than it is a non-summer event.
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Canifar.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're looking at the carrot and not the stick. Right? The carrot is, hey, if you fill this out, you get something good. What happens if you don't fill this out, you get something bad? How about an ordinance that says you have to fill it out? No? And then we can have the chief go around and his guys and just hand out the citations.
If I'm going to do that, I might as well get him to fill out the forms.
Okay, then I've got another idea. At 100%, they can have a barbecue with the mayor.
But I'm a vegetarian. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Alderman Murray.
Thanks, Mayor. I mean, I'm all for whatever type way, you know, we can encourage engagement. I'm not sure if there is a real good answer, to be quite honest with you, because I think it's difficult for people are engaged or they're not. And, you know, if we want to try something, I'm all for it. I just believe, you know, for somebody to be engaged and to do the things, even though it's very simple, they got to just see value in it. Obviously, we've tried to share that value because of all the things that we're trying to do in the city. It's just, I think it's, I'm for whatever we want to try to increase. I just would say I would not get a whole lot of hopes up. Would be just, unfortunately, my thoughts.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Thanks, Mayor. What does the food truck option actually look like in practicality? Like, what does the city, how much will we pay, and what is it? How do we execute that?
So it really just depends on where they go, on how much. Like some of them are like $10 a plate. If it's like a dessert one, it's like $4 a snow cone. So I mean, depending on like if they go to an apartment with, I'll be honest, I don't know how many apartment units are in the average apartment here, but it would just kind of depend on where they go to see how much we have to.
I was thinking if we had to spend $100 on food to get 100% population, 100% count, that would then generate somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million. I thought that was a better investment than $750,000 with the Census Bureau.
You think it'll be as little as $100?
100,000?
Oh, you said 100,000.
Sorry, if I said $100.
Yeah.
No, sorry,
misspoke.
100,000. Sorry, let's put some zeros on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking 100,000.
I
Yeah. I don't even think you could give trick-or-treat candy for $100. I spend that in my neighborhood for one night. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be 100,000. That's my budget number. And again, here's the good thing. If it doesn't work, we're not going to spend that much. And if it does work, then we're going to spend that much, but we're going to get the $1.5 to $2 million next year in exchange for that. So I'm not sure I see a downside. If we get somewhere in the middle and we can get close, then we do have folks prepared to walk the neighborhoods, and we're going to put you on a beat as well, just so you know.
Alderman Fitter.
Thank you, Mayor. I know there's been other communities in Middle Tennessee who've done things like have drawings to give away TVs and gift cards and whatnot. Have we thought of that? Or,
Yep.
you know, go get $10,000 worth of gift cards at various local small businesses or
I think the problem that we're having is getting the people's attention individually. We've hit the market. Matt, you've done as much pounded on this. You're now known as the special census guy. So the question is, how do we motivate the HOA people to get them to knock on the doors or say something to their neighbors or use their information? So now if we wanted to do both.
If we get $1,000 worth of small business gift cards and Alderman Fuquay's neighborhood gets 100%, everybody who filled it out is entered in the drawing, and then you're not excluding the people who did the right thing back in December.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it'll work any better or worse. I'm just.
Brett, can you give a car away?
Yeah, Brett, can you give a car away? What about a picture of them sitting in the car next to you? I don't know that it works any better or worse. It just throwing another idea.
Are you opposed to trying both?
No.
Okay. We're trying to find a way to engage people on the street.
I mean, if we go give people $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 worth of small business gift cards, all they're going to do is turn around and spend it, which I don't think we would be opposed to.
We'll get it twice
like
that
it.
way.
Alderman Fuqua.
I'll donate a erosion control gift card.
What about like get out of jail free cards?
Alderman Cox.
Thanks, Mayor. Pam, if being on the HOA in my neighborhood, if you're able to provide me who we've got and who we don't, I don't mind starting down that path. And if others are willing to do that within their HOA, I think we can start to make some traction.
I think that was what we met with a lot of the HOA folks and their whatever, and it was, hey, we think we can do this, but what's it worth to us, kind of thing, and that's why we were kind of coming up with, make it an HOA event kind of thing, and we thought that would, Christy Smith back there heard that conversation, and I think you're darn close to 100% if you aren't 100%. And they knocked on doors and made it happen. And by the way, they'll get their food truck event. We're not going to penalize the folks that did it in advance. So, and what we spend will depend on how many people show up. How many people when you have a free HOA event, how many people show up? It really, depends on the day, the weather, all of that kind of stuff. So it's hard for us to predict what we're going to end up spending. But it can't be more than other alternatives. Does anybody have a problem if we try both the gift card approach and the food truck idea, one for individuals and one for HOAs?
Alderman Fuqua.
I'm not opposed, but could we make it local food trucks as well?
Oh, yeah, that's all we've been talking to, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all we've been talking to. Sorry, I'm a small business person at heart.
All right.
All right, we're on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that concludes the work session discussion. Moving on, are there any acknowledgements tonight? Mr. Carter.
Missy Stahl. I've been working with Missy Stahl lately. Again, it's been a little while since we worked together, but on some projects related to Buckner Road of a legal nature. And Missy's so on top of everything all the time. She's clear, cogent, and efficient and competent, and I really can't say enough about how she's able to get things teed up for me. And it's really great for the city. So thank you, Missy.
Any other acknowledgements, board? Ms. Caskey.
Yes, I have two. I wanted to say thank you to the three guys that went to clean up vandalism in the form of graffiti and noticed something looked odd under the bridge and called it out and took the time to didn't just ignore it and stepped it up. We're going to give them a pickle pen tomorrow, but I also wanted to call them out here. And Tyler, I can't find your email, so can you give me their names? Randy Huey, Jeff Peden, and Ryan Kelly. So thank them. I really appreciate them, and I wanted to do a shout out. The other thing, first of all, thank you to the board for making this budget process relatively painless. It's been a good conversation. We worked hard to try to implement it quickly and timely. I particularly want to thank Tony Talstead and Ishmael Ahmed for their work of really digging down and getting it done. I know Tony's had many, many sleepless nights, and there's been a few loud conversations in our part of the world as we fought through this. But the good news is we've learned a lot, and next year's will be even better and smoother. And hopefully next year we'll go back to a multi-year budget because we'll have our plans together. And I think Tony's already loaded up the budget for the next go-round. So those eager beavers out there that just can't wait to start on the budget again now that this one's over can already start putting their budgets together for the next 2 years. So again, Tony, thank you. And again, thanks to all of you on the board. We have appreciated your flexibility and your cooperation and your understanding.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Just one quick announcement. Experience Spring Hill is this Saturday from 10 to 2 at Summit High School, so it'll be a good place to get and beat the heat because it's going to be inside for most part. So.
Yeah, and you are all expected to sign up for some working time. I have not sent that email out. That's on me. I didn't get to it today. It came out Friday, and I just missed it. I know a couple of you are going to be out of town, but we do need you guys. We have massive stuff going on this time. So I think just about every department is represented somehow in that program. So it's going to be a great event, and I'm looking forward to it.
Meeting adjourned.